I think learning athletes' names from foreign countries, I think, is really the first step to showing these athletes that the respect that they deserve, right? If we can say names like Kachuk, we can also say names like Peslarova, Shapovalivová, Mrazova, etc.
This is the Women's Hockey Report presented by Locked On NHL. Your weekly look at the world of women's hockey. From the PWHL to the international stage, it's the Women's Hockey Report on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And once again, we have a special guest on the Women's Hockey Report brought to you by the Locked On NHL channel, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And this is going to be fun because we have Preston Huntington joining me, one of your co-hosts, Erica L. Ayala, from the Czech Women's Hockey Report. So we have our name rights, in common here, Preston, but you and I were able to meet in Raleigh, and we were there for the PWHL Takeover Tour. And once I learned what you did, I was like, absolutely, we have to have you on the show. So Preston, welcome. How are things for you today?
Things are stressful. Currently in the middle of packing and trying to get ready to make my way to Czechia for the Women's World Championships. We leave on Friday, so trying to close out work and try to make sure that I've got everything I need. So, but very excited, and things are fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking, and all the more reason, thank you so much for joining us while you're getting ready to head over to Czechia for the 2025 Women's World Championships. Team Czechia will, of course, be hosting. But before we get into all of that, and yes, fans, those who know my women's hockey coverage, we will have Preston help us with name pronunciations. We're going to go through that a little bit later on this discussion. But first, Preston, I like to kind of ask all of our guests to just start with how they fell in love with what they do. So for you, what has this journey been to get to a point where you are covering not just women's hockey, but Czech women's hockey? Take us through the story.
Yeah, no, great question. I definitely get a lot of questions about why an American on the East Coast is so interested in Czech women's hockey. Honestly, Czech Women's Hockey Report was born out of a gap. I realized that no one was covering these world-class athletes in English and giving them the attention that they deserved. This whole thing started last year at the 2024 Women's World Championships in Utica, New York. It was my first time attending the World Championships. I was there with my wife and one of my best friends, Dan, and we got so inspired by the quality of the play and the accessibility of the athletes and the fans. I had always had a lifelong affinity for the Czech Republic. I am not Czech by background or by nature, but when I was a kid, I did a school project on the country when I was in high school, and it kind of started this lifelong obsession with the Czech history and culture and its people. I've been a hockey player my whole life. I still coach. I'm a goaltending coach here in Northern Virginia, DC. I obsessively watch hockey. And I figured, why not start a platform where I can combine these two passions that I have? And, I think as well, seeing and following the women's game over the last couple of years, I've realized that, I have a unique opportunity to do something that isn't just about stats. It's about stories and analysis and spotlighting these athletes. It's a way to bring these athletes from overseas into more of the global conversation, right? Instead of just focusing on some of the star athletes that we all know and love here in North America, right? Because they've earned it, right? They've put in the hard work and they deserve to be household names. So as far as I'm concerned, we're the only English platform solely focused on Czech women's hockey. And we were very proud to fill that gap. And it's been quite the adventure over the last 12 months.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. But most importantly, thank you for what you're doing. I have been covering women's hockey for, about 10 years now. And you're absolutely right. There are so many gaps. And I love to always connect with, for my own research purposes, but also to highlight folks that are doing amazing work trying to fill those gaps. So again, stick taps to you, Preston. Thank you so much. And wow, what a perfect time to start this platform, because now Czechia is hosting World Championships. I think even if we go outside of the event, which of course you and I will talk about, I have been keeping a keen eye on Team Czechia. I am pretty bullish in saying that they are one of the teams that is having a super surge within the field overall. I feel pretty strongly about that, and I think we've seen the proof in the pudding, so to speak, in the last handful of international tournaments, including some of the under tournaments, and so all the more reason to be excited. It just seems like this is going to be a great culmination of women's hockey. You were the right person at the right time, Preston.
Yeah, I think so. No, I mean, this is potentially a year that's going to be just incredibly special for this national team. In my opinion, I think this year's roster might be the deepest we've ever seen. It's this beautiful mix of battle-tested kind of veterans and young rising stars with a lot of breakout potential. So it's going to be exciting for sure.
Indeed. And so that kind of takes us to getting ready for this tournament. So it's going to be, a fantastic tournament. Once again, we have two groups in the women's game. And, Team Czechia in Group A as the hosts alongside Finland, Switzerland, the US, and Canada. Group B will feature Germany, Hungary, Japan, Norway, and Sweden. So overall, let's just start with including the fact that you are in the midst of, at the time we're recording, packing to leave for the tournament. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, about this tournament and what we might see on display from a broad strokes perspective, and then we'll get into Team Czechia.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be, I mean, Czechia is a hockey mad nation, right? This is a country that is a hockey nation through and through, right? The passion's deep. And while the women's game, I think, hasn't always been front and center, I think that's starting to change. We've seen over 70,000 tickets sold for this event, which I think tells you something. And, Czech fans, I think, are ready to show the world that women's hockey belongs on the biggest stage, right? This is more than just about, I think, the sport itself. I think this is a statement from a European nation that wants to see itself as a country that's on the rise internationally in the game, that wants to perennially, challenge the duopoly, I think, of Canada and the United States. So this is a chance for young girls across a hockey mad nation to see themselves in these players. And I think it's a really unique opportunity. And I think, the host city as well, I think people are going to fall in love with it. It's in the heart of the historical land of Bohemia. It's a beautiful town. It's got a rich hockey history itself. And I think hosting the World Championship here is kind of symbolic in a way. I think it's going to bring the game back to its heartland of the country. And it's going to be a phenomenal couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you alluded to it there, but tell us a little bit about where the tournament will be hosted, and from what what are some of the things that people who are going to be in attendance as fans can expect from the host, the host nation, but specifically from the arenas where the games will be played.
Yeah, I honestly think what fans are going to see, especially those that are coming from overseas and aren't from Europe, I think they're going to see a level of passion. I think they're going to see a level of excitement that they've never seen before in an international tournament, especially on the women's side, right? And I want to put this into perspective, I think, from some of the things that I've heard from some of the players, right? This is a Czech national team that won back-to-back bronze medals in 2022 and 23. They've finally broken out as a top talent. Yes, they had the shootout heartbreak last year, but this is a team that's been knocking on the door of something historic, I think, for the last couple of years. What's exciting about it is this means so much to them, because when the Czech national team had an opportunity to really play amongst the greatest for the first time, it was in the Beijing Olympics. And that was in an environment where their family members and their fans and the people that care about them did not get a chance to see them play against the best in the world. So this is truly and honestly the first time that some of the biggest names in Czech hockey are going to have a chance to do it at home in front of their family and friends and all the people that have helped get them to where they are. And that aspect alone, I think, is going to bring such a unique atmosphere to this event. I really do think it's going to be loud and proud.
Yeah, for sure. I was at those Beijing Olympics. From the athlete perspective, even the media perspective, it was definitely Unique is probably an understatement. I still, all these years later, have difficulty describing what that was like, including the stress and anxiety, quite honestly, for all of us. I mean, I wasn't competing on the ice, but any test positive would mean that you were out for likely the entire tournament, whether it was media or otherwise. So, and it was interesting to see how the players responded to that and still found joy and still had a moment to reflect, hey, this is still the Olympics, you know? And without that, I can only imagine what the feeling and the sentiment will be. And you're right, that was really a springboard, especially for the senior women's national team, for people to really pay heed and notice. But the one thing I love about this Czechia team is, and you and I have talked about this, just around the rink. I talk about this all the time. Women's hockey itself has gone through so many different phases in the last 10 years. And what I don't know that people realize or understand is that there have been Czech players a part of those history making moments through and through. And I want to talk about some of those players in particular, including, you can help correct me if I'm saying any names wrong, but the first player I think of, and PWHL fans, Connecticut Whale fans will know this name, and that is Katarina Mrazova. And we know she's coming off of an injury she suffered. Hey, I got a thumbs up. Let's go. I've worked with Kaka a lot on that, so I'm glad I got it right. But for Katarzyna, I mean, she's playing in the PWHL. She played in the NWHL slash PHF. She played for the Boston Blades in the CWHL. She's played in the NCAA. To your point, also played in the Olympics, and now has a chance to return once again to the women's senior team, but this time on home ice. Let's talk a little bit about Katarzyna, what you're hearing as far as her recovery from injury, and what role you think she will play for this team, Team Czechia, in this tournament.
Yeah, all great points, and a great question to ask. I mean, first off, first and foremost, Katarzyna is a legend, of course, in Czech women's hockey. I think she's a testament to many of the European players that have had to take big sacrifices, and come overseas to North America with no guarantee that they're going to be able to make this sport something that they can live off of and can make a career, right? And she was really one of the first ones to do it, especially from, of course, the Czech Republic. So, and she's just one of a couple that I think are kind of seasoned vets at this point that I think people are starting to finally open their eyes to. You've got Denisa Kryžová, who is a similar story, someone who came overseas, did youth hockey here in North America, ended up playing in CAA, and also played PWHF or PHF in WHL as well. And these are players that have brought, I think, a veteran presence to this team over the last couple of years, and are really have done a phenomenal job preparing this next generation of really young rising stars that are about to find themselves either right out of NCAA or about to join or start their NCAA careers. And we'll talk about some of those players in a minute. But in Katarzyna's storyline here, I think, she's been on the LTIR since February. She's been skating. She's, had an opportunity to be with the team. I think her return from injury is obviously one of the biggest stories here. And she's not the only one, right? You've got Dominika Lašková from Montreal as well, who, she suffered a 403-day lapse between games and has been trying really hard to get back into full strength. And this is a team that I think they've been cautious. I think head coach Carla McLeod and the team managers have been cautiously optimistic that they're going to have their players at full strength. And so I think they've been in a way setting themselves up for a strong return on the ice. And I think their schedule favors them as well. I think, they've got a first game against Switzerland tomorrow, which I think, of course will be a tough matchup, but I think it's a good way to start the tournament and get them eased in. And I will be very eager to see how some of these return from injury stars fare in the first couple of games as we make our way through this tournament.
Yeah, for sure. So we've already talked about it, in passing. Well, obviously we talked about Mrazova. You also mentioned Lašková, who again has been injured for quite some time. And you also mentioned Denisa Krishova, who's a name that I want to stay here for a minute, but I really want to stick with Denisa because her name has been I don't controversial doesn't seem right, but it has certainly been we've seen a lot of versions of how to pronounce Denisa's name. So Preston, I'm going to put you on the main screen right now. Look straight into the camera and tell women's hockey fans how we pronounce this name.
Well, first, let me caveat this by saying that Czech is not my native language. It is not, in my opinion, pronounced Shishova, as we have seen in a couple of different outlets. But it is more of a rolled R with a Z sound in that second letter, right? So it's Krzizova. But I do think that when you're learning these names, right, we want to tie this to with respect, right? I think learning athletes' names from foreign countries, I think, is really the first step to showing these athletes that the respect that they deserve, right? If we can say names like Kachuk, we can also say names like Peslarova, Šapovalivová, Mrazova, etc. But it is difficult to say. I think for most athletes, giving it an effort is enough to make them feel respected. Many people have said in the past Krizhova instead of trying to pronounce the hard R. But it is a difficult name. I do think that in this day and age, accessibility is important as content creators, as social media influencers, and as people that really want to cover this game and give it the respect it deserves. I think we should all be making the effort to say these names correctly, right? So Denisa Krzizova, she's one of my favorite players in the game. Yes, no, she's great.
All right, so I'm going to try again. I'm going to have you say it one more time, first and last name, and then I'm going to try to see if I can get it.
All right, so I say Denisa Krzizova. I cannot roll my R's though, so I am not very good at the second letter, but I like to make a concerted effort. So I like to say, if you can't say it, it's a Krizhova with a long A at the end.
Krizhova, but Krishova, like Krishova, yeah, the R is the top part.
You're close.
I'm getting it. I'm going to keep practicing. I'm determined. I am determined. But I think this is also going to be a roster that is determined. So we've talked about Lashkova. We've talked about Mrazova. We've talked about Krishova. I want to ask you, and let's take a look. I'm going to post up here. This is something that we saw the team post on social media. I want to take a look at this roster because you mentioned this a little bit, Preston, that there's a mix of players that have carried the banner, so to speak, for this national team. And I think the three players that we mentioned, among others, are there. But now what I want to ask you is if you're looking for comps or maybe a player that is going to blend well with Mrazova, Lashkova on the defensive side, and Krishova, are there some players on this roster that you think if fans like their game that they should keep an eye on?
I mean, absolutely. And this is, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I think, but I think this is honestly the deepest roster the Czechs have ever had. I am super excited, not only because I'm hoping we will have a mostly healthy team, but some of the names on this list that are joining the squad and are a little bit older and wiser and bring a little bit more experience, I'm super excited about. I could honestly go on and on about almost every name on this list, to be honest. So I will refrain from doing that. But there's a couple, right? You've got a name that a lot of people have heard, and I think we're waiting to see her really, really take hold at the international level, and that's Adéla Šapovalivová. She's 18 years old. She just finished top 5 in the SDHL in Sweden in scoring. She has superstar potential. She's about to join the University of Wisconsin in the NCAA. So I think she's going to be an incredible athlete to watch at these games. You've also got a really unique storyline in Kristina Kaltunkova, or Kalti, as she's known. She is Colgate's all-time leading scorer in the NCAA. She's one of the best pure goal scorers I've ever seen at that level. There's been talks in the past about, I think, some disagreements that have happened with her and former coaches or whatever the case may be. I know she spent a lot of time focusing on herself and her career, and now she's found herself in this squad with a team that I think can really help propel her and for her to propel this team to new heights, right? She's now coming alongside, I think, head coach Carla McLeod, who has created something very special culturally within this group. I think there's a culture of belief and structure and purpose amongst these players. You watch any of their social media videos, or follow any of these players on like Instagram or whatever, and they're just all so joyful and joyous and happy. This really is, I think, a family type atmosphere. And so I'm really excited to see how Christina will gel and become part of this team and squad. Another young player that I think will be really interesting, I don't know how many minutes she'll get, but is Barbara Juržičková. She is coming off an amazing season in the Finnish league. She is a young player that I think, again, can really contribute in terms of depth scoring and potentially bring some energy and youthful energy to the team, especially in the bottom six. And then, of course, you've got your stalwarts, right? You've got your goaltender, Klara Peslarova. She's really been the heartbeat, I think, of this team over the last couple of years. She's a proven winner. She's cool and calm under pressure. And I think she's a goalie that's really thrived on big moments in her career. You've got Teresa Vanashova, who, of course, explosive, phenomenal form right now in the PWHL, fresh off, her second hat trick of the year. She's playing with confidence. She's absolutely, crushing it here in North America. And then on the defensive side, you've got, some players that are just, unbelievable leaders. Aneta Tiarolova, who is the captain of this team. She's been phenomenal for Ottawa this year. Daniela Peshova, over in Boston. And another player that I think is worth calling out as well is Andrea Turnkova, who just finished her sophomore season at RPI. She's phenomenal on the blue line. She makes a lot of kind of two-way decision-making efforts and can contribute on kind of both sides of the puck. And I really enjoyed watching her game this year here stateside. So there's so many players, there's so many storylines. I really don't know who's going to be the one to come out and be the kind of the leader on this team, because every single one of them has potential to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you walking us through that. And I think you're right. I personally love watching teams where it's not always just one superstar that's just banging out goals, but you can get a more balanced attack. And when I think of the field, and as you mentioned, really trying to knock down the top two teams, which is still the United States and Canada. I think we can all agree to that effect. You have to be able to do that. It's a little bit more by committee. And I want to ask you about one player in particular, and I think perhaps she can unlock what I see as the style maybe of this Czech team, and that is Teresa Vanishova. Now, we have spoken to her. We know that she got into a little bit of a fisticuffs, and I did get to speak to her in Raleigh. She finally came out, Preston. I know we were waiting for her forever. Summary there is, no, she's not trying to make dropping the gloves a habit. Fighting maybe, but not dropping the gloves. But Vanishova has a style of play that is just full on sandpaper. It is grit, but it doesn't lack finesse. It doesn't lack skill. And for me, that's what makes this Czech team dangerous, is that they are absolutely going to throw their bodies around, and you're gonna feel it, right? There are certain teams, mostly lunch pail teams, right, that they want you to. They don't know if they're gonna win or lose, but they know for sure you're gonna feel it when you play them. And I get the sense that this is that type of team, because even if you look at Vanishova, I mean, if you look at her body type, you wouldn't assume that she's the one who's going to lead in penalty minutes. And she does bring that physicality to the game. So, what would you say? Is Vanishova more of an outlier? Do you think that there is something to bringing that physicality and finesse when it comes to Team Czechia? And maybe also the question is has it been one way, and does this team have potential, or do they want to evolve into something else?
No, I don't think Teresa is an outlier here. I think she is a symptom of a system that head coach Carla McLeod has brought to this group of players, and it's so exciting to watch. Carla McLeod has come out and said on a couple of occasions that she wants her team to play physical. She wants that kind of North American gritty hockey to be translated to the international game. And this is something that I think she attempted to do when she was with Japan before she took over as Czechia's national team head coach. And now she has a blend of players that I think are willing to give the effort and have the skill sets and have the ability to translate and adopt that mentality. Venishova is intelligent. She's smart. She knows where to be on the ice. And the only way that I can really describe when I watch her game is that she gives the effort. The effort is there. She doesn't allow for, anything to really get in her way. And that's where I think the physicality comes in. That's where, sometimes the penalties come into play, right? She's passionate about her play. And she wants to be in the right place at the right time. And that's what's made her so successful. We've seen this Czech team struggle, especially with the European Hockey Tour throughout the season. We've seen it last year at the World Championships. We've seen them struggle at times with being a little disciplined. And that is something that I will be personally looking for in this year's iteration, because I think if they can refine and find that perfect balance of, hey, I'm going to punish you for when you make mistakes, but I'm going to punish you in a way that doesn't negatively affect us, they're going to find more success on the ice. And that is something that I think head coach Carla McLeod has been refining over the last couple of months. And again, we talked about it already. This is a healthy team. This is a team that has all of its star players ideally ready to go and ready to put in a full effort, right? So they're deep, right? So I think it's going to be an exciting experiment to watch this year and at the tournament this year for sure.
Indeed. And, you already mentioned first game against Switzerland. Then right off of the heels of game number one, they get USA, that is Team Czechia, will take on USA in their on home ice, excuse me. Then we'll have Finland. Those are their first three matchups. So let's just talk about the first three matchups. Preston, what would success look like? How do you think this team will define success after their first three games?
That's a great question. I'm not going to, let's take in the moment a little bit here, right? Like we talked about, I think the emotions that these players are probably going to go through playing on home soil for the first time, family and friends in the audience, right? I expect the game against Switzerland to be sloppy and messy and full of passion and emotion. But that's a game that I think that will set the tone for how are they going to handle this pressure? How are they going to come out and approach some of these challenges they're sure to face in this tournament? I think success is being calm, cool, and collected, not allowing that penalty trouble to get to them early on. I think the offense will find a way in a tournament that's quick and short and sweet like this. It's easy for teams to panic when the offense doesn't show up right away. I think I do have a lot of belief in this coaching staff that they've spent a lot of time convincing these players that, hey, let's get through that first game. Let's get out of there with a victory, no matter how it comes, even if it's sloppy. Let's get out of there with a victory, and let's go into that game against the United States full of confidence, right? I'm not going to be looking for any crazy upsets or anything like that in the group stage. I want them to play, physical, tough, challenging. But I think the game that we're all going to be looking at, and the one that is probably going to be the most influential, is going to be that third game against Finland. This is the country that has been neck and neck with Czechia for many years now for that kind of perennial number 3 in the world. And that will be a statement game too, because Finland's bringing some young players there. I wouldn't say they're rebuilding. I would say they're far from that, but their roster is inherently a little different from last year. This is a chance, I think, for the Czechs to come out and say, hey, we are that number 3. We are going to take that step above you. We're going to solidify that role. So I think that third game is going to be really interesting. And I think that'll be the one that we will all pay attention to the most in the group stage.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And of course, they'll close out the group stage, taking on Canada before we see what the draw is for the quarterfinals. I agree with you 100% with the cadence likely of the first 3 games. That first one, the fact that they don't take on, quite honestly, any other team other than Switzerland, I think the stakes would be a little different. The preparation likely would be different, but having a little bit of a, I mean, I want to say cushion because of all of the things that you said. And, this is not to minimize what Switzerland can bring. I mean, this is a team historically that has been that number 3 team in women's ice hockey. They just have, had to overcome some challenges, as all of these teams unfortunately had, with fights with their federation, and things of that nature. And it's taken a little step back. Sweden has also been a team that we've seen kind of shift in where they stand. So I think this is a great opportunity. I'm so excited for you that you get to be there. And before we let folks know where they can follow your amazing work, because I know I will definitely be tapped in, I want to ask you, so what do you think the goal is for Team Czechia? And I want to know, from what you're hearing, what you think, what is the true goal, right? And then what is maybe what what is, I hate to use the term, but what would failure look like? What would be disappointing, I suppose. Maybe I'll say it that way. What do you think the ultimate goal is here? And sometimes that's a pretty obvious question, but I'm still going to ask it. But then what do you think on the other side? What do you think disappointment would look like for this Czechia team hosting Women's Worlds?
Sure. Um, well, I'm certainly, I'm not going to try to speak for these players or the coaching staff or anyone within the organization. I can only offer my perspective, right? So, um, I would offer a couple of different points here. I don't think there is failure, to be quite honest. They've already won because they get to host the tournament and they get this unique opportunity to, as I mentioned a couple of times, play in front of family and friends, be that kind of inspiration for a country that is already hockey mad. Um, so I don't think there's necessarily failure. I think, would it be disappointing to potentially, get to a bronze medal game and lose again? Yes, of course. But on the flip side of that too, there's this maybe pervasive mentality that like, oh, well, maybe there's a chance that, there could be a huge upset. Similar to how a couple of years ago we saw Finland do it to, I believe it was the United States, right? So, but I don't think that that's what defines success for them. I think a successful tournament, right, is continuing to build off the momentum of the veteran leadership that they have and really start to figure out who's going to be that next, I guess, cadre of leaders that are coming from this group of incredibly talented young players. Some of the ones that I mentioned earlier, right? I didn't even hit all of them. Like there's more that are coming overseas that are about to play in CAA. There are leaders in European leagues that are, every year in the top 10 or 5 in scoring. These players are going to be the next Katarina Mrazova, Denisa Kryzhovas of the war of this team, right? And they're going to be the ones that I think will in the future have the responsibility or the pressure to maybe try to take that next step to, challenge your Canada, USA. But for now, I think they're going to win regardless because they're going to put success in the minds of thousands of young women that are playing hockey in Czechia that are going to see this team play physical and hard and talented. And that's only going to make quality in these programs and in this country be better, which will inherently make the national team better in the future as well. So in my opinion, they're going to succeed regardless. They're not going to fail. Selfishly though, of course, it would be amazing to see some kind of crazy upset if it happens. But, I just want to see the girls have fun. I just want to see them enjoy the moment. I think they're going to crush it.
Yeah, I love that answer. I really do. And I'm going to press you, Preston, for just one more thing. Thinking overall about the tournament, who do you have placing gold, silver, and bronze?
Well, my friend Dan, who will be coming with us again, he's a huge Team USA supporter naturally. So I think, his whole motto for us going overseas is, we've got unfinished business after what happened in Utica last year. So I think with some of the injuries that Team Canada has had, and I think with maybe the hitch on their shoulder, I think Team USA is going to come out, and I think they're going to come away with the gold medal this year. I mean, they look unstoppable, and I'm really excited to see how they respond after the tough loss last year on home ice. So, but who knows? Whatever. We don't know. We'll see.
So you have USA gold. Who you have taken silver?
I do have Canada in that silver second place matchup. I as much as I would love to play the underdog and say it's going to be Czechia, I will say it'll probably be Canada. But I would not. Let me say it this way: I would not be surprised if the Czechs are able to come away and do something special. At the end of the day, it's still hockey, and you only need a lucky bounce or two here and there to make things go your way. So.
All right, and round it out. Who takes the last spot on the podium?
I think it's us. I think we're going to do it. I think the Czechs are going to take it. I don't see anything getting in their way of doing the fan service and coming away with a medal. Plus, the men, they've got to come and support and I'm gonna say it's gonna be the Czechs. I think they're gonna push through. I think they're not gonna let their fans down. I don't think they want to put themselves in a position where they lose to Finland again. I think they're gonna come away with the silverware in front of the home crowd, and they've got a big shoulders to stand on after what happened with the men's side last year, winning the gold medal on home ice, of course. So I think they want to have the same thing happen to them and again be inspiration to all the young girls that are seeing them. So
well, we've seen them do it before, so I think you're right. There are a lot of different factors that just lean into this being a Czech team that is a team to watch, and I think you and I both share that. I'm so grateful for your time, Preston. I know that it's a busy week for you, but you took the time out to share your knowledge, and so I want to make sure that folks can follow your work. You and the crew going to be boots on the ground, which is so freaking exciting. I've never been to a world championships. I gotta knock that off the bucket list one of these days. But Preston, how can we follow the Czech Women's Hockey Report and all of the amazing work that you will be doing at world championships?
Sure. Yeah. So you can find us on Instagram, of course. I believe it's Czech W Hockey _report. Or you can just search us Czech Women's Hockey Report. It should show up. We're also, I do a little bit of blogging and player interviews and spotlights on our website as well. That's CzechWomen'sHockeyReport.com. Short and sweet and simple. I will say I would be remiss to say that none of this would honestly be possible without my friend Dan and, of course, my wife, who puts up with way too much hockey. So she, both of them have been stalwart supporters of this entire thing, and they actually contribute a lot on the back end as well. So, we are a team, and we're all three going to be there, and we can't wait to hopefully meet fans and bring as much content as we can for the Worlds this year. So if you guys follow us and get an opportunity to follow the journey, we'll be going live. We'll be doing interviews. We'll be, showcasing the beautiful city that we're going to be in. Lots of good stuff coming your way over the next week. So
love it. What's your wife's first name?
My wife is Jenny or Jennifer.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, to Preston and Jenny and Dan, thank you in advance for what you will bring from World Championships. Thank you already for what you have done. Safe travels, and hey, have a great time. It's going to be awesome. I'm so grateful to have you on, and we're going to have you back, especially if the podium is as we both think it will be. But Preston, enjoy so much. Thank you, and we'll be touching base soon.
Eric, I appreciate everything you're doing as well, and thank you so much for your time.